Welcome back to another episode of Furniture Industry News. Today is September 29, 2025, and as always, we're here to break down the latest stories shaping the furniture business. If you work in this industry, you know how quickly things can change, and our goal is to make sure you're caught up with the news that matters most. So, let's dive right in. One of the biggest headlines recently came from President Donald Trump, who used his social platform to call out the North Carolina furniture industry directly. He argued that tariffs have been hurting domestic manufacturers and claimed that unfair foreign competition is making it harder for U.S. producers to compete. Whether you agree with him or not, this post is reigniting the conversation around tariffs, imports, and how policy decisions trickle down to the sales floor. It's a reminder that trade policy is not some abstract idea. It impacts price tags, supply chain stability, and ultimately what consumers can afford in their living rooms. Speaking of imports, recent data shows that shipments into the U.S. fell slightly in the first half of the year. On the surface, the decline might look like a win for domestic manufacturers, but the reality is more complicated. The drop wasn't dramatic, it was more of a pause than a collapse, but it happened against the backdrop of tariff talk and election year politics. Retailers and manufacturers are now trying to read the tea leaves. Will tariffs tighten further? Will costs rise? And will sourcing strategies need to shift again? Many companies that had moved production out of China to countries like Vietnam or Malaysia are now reevaluating those choices. It's a constant game of adjustment, and the uncertainty alone can freeze investment decisions. Industry analysts are reminding us that while tariffs and trade policy dominate headlines, they're just one piece of the performance puzzle. In a recent commentary, Bill McLaughlin laid out the numbers that tell the deeper story of where the furniture business stands today. He pointed out that while we've had some bumps, slower consumer spending, higher financing costs, and supply chain shifts, the industry has also shown resilience. Furniture remains a big-ticket purchase tied closely to consumer confidence and housing. The data shows that even in an uneven economy, consumers continue to buy, though they may be more selective and value-driven. His point was clear. The numbers don't just tell us where we are, they give us a glimpse of where we're heading. And one area that always ties closely to furniture sales is housing. August brought another year-over-year increase in existing home sales. That's the fourth month in a row of gains, and it's welcome news after years of sluggish activity. When homes change hands, it sparks furniture sales. People don't just move into a new house without making at least a few updates, whether it's a new sectional, a mattress, or dining set. Rising home sales create ripples across our industry. But let's not sugarcoat it. These gains are coming off a relatively low base. Inventory remains tight, prices are still elevated, and mortgage rates haven't dropped in any meaningful way. So while it's good news, it's also fragile. If borrowing costs stay high or inventory shrinks again, this recovery in housing could stall, and with it, the lift for furniture. Switching gears, there's another major story unfolding in retail consolidation. The new owners of FRG, better known as Franchise Group, are suing AF Nuco, the buyers of American Freight. This dispute is getting messy and could have ripple effects across discount and value furniture retailing. American Freight, which has built its brand around affordability and accessibility, has been in the middle of ownership changes that created a lot of questions about strategy, stability, and direction. Legal battles don't exactly inspire confidence for employees, partners, or customers, and the uncertainty could weigh on the brand. For the industry at large, it's another reminder of how consolidation and private equity involvement can sometimes create turbulence instead of stability. When lawsuits and ownership disputes dominate the headlines, they distract from the bigger mission, serving customers well. Now, tying all these threads together, tariffs, imports, housing, and ownership disputes, we're left with a picture of an industry that is both resilient and vulnerable. Resilient because consumers continue to buy furniture. Existing home sales are finally showing some momentum, and many manufacturers have learned to adapt quickly to supply chain challenges. Vulnerable because politics, trade policy, and financial disputes have the potential to disrupt progress at any moment. If you're a retailer, these stories signal the need to stay nimble. Keep an eye on housing data. It remains one of the clearest predictors of near-term demand. Watch tariff developments closely. What sounds like distant political talk today could impact your cost of goods tomorrow. And pay attention to what's happening with large players like American Freight. Even if you're not competing directly, their troubles can shift consumer perception in the value segment and open opportunities for others. If you're a manufacturer, the message is similar. Flexibility is everything. Global sourcing strategies need to remain fluid, with backups in place for shifting tariff landscapes. And the data shows that while imports are down slightly, demand hasn't disappeared. It's just moving. That means relationships with retailers, the ability to communicate your value story, and operational efficiency are all critical. At the same time, it's worth stepping back and remembering that numbers alone don't define the industry. As Bill McLaughlin pointed out, performance is more than a set of statistics. It's about consumer behavior, trust in brands, and the ability to adapt to challenges. We've seen that time and again over the past few years, from the pandemic to supply chain crises to inflation, and yet the industry continues to move forward. Looking ahead, one of the biggest questions is how election year politics will influence all of this. Tariffs are already back in the spotlight, and trade policy tends to become a talking point when candidates want to highlight economic nationalism. For the furniture industry, that means we should brace for more uncertainty in the months ahead. If tariffs increase, some retailers may have to pass higher prices along to consumers at a time when affordability is already stretched. On the flip side, domestic producers might see opportunities to regain market share. Either way, the ground is shifting, and staying informed is the only way to stay prepared. So, to wrap up today's episode, the big takeaways are clear. Tariffs and trade remain front and center, imports have slowed, housing is showing some life, ownership disputes are rattling major players, and the numbers suggest the industry is holding steady despite challenges. It's a complicated picture, but that's what makes this business so dynamic. That's all for today's furniture industry news. If you find this podcast helpful for staying on top of what's happening in the furniture world, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update.